Hey folks, Dave Temple here. As you know, my podcast is all about talking to some of the best thriller writers in the world. But now, after nearly 2.5 years, I think it's time I toot my own horn. So with that, I'm offering my thriller, The Poser, for sale. This thriller stars Hollywood detective Patricia Pat Norelli, a rookie cop working the overnight beat when one of Hollywood's biggest stars is found dead in her Hollywood Hills home. The only problem, the star just won an Oscar and is found dead only hours later. Now, Pat sees this as a way to forge her own path and muscles her way into the case. Soon, she and partner Detective Stuart Brown find themselves deep inside a complex case with more questions than answers and a ghost of a killer. Now, this isn't my first self-published book, but it's the first one I'm very confident you're going to like. I'm pretty proud of it. And for the rest of this month, you can get the ebook for only $5.95 or the paperback for $13.95. Now, since I do this weekly podcast as a free service, perhaps you'd consider this a way to help out your fellow thriller author. Okay, here's the link, davidtemplebooks.com/books. Okay, there you'll see The Poser. Just click and you're on your way. Again, the link is davidtemplebooks.com/books. Otherwise, just head over to Amazon. Okay, thanks for your support. And now on with the show. Hello and welcome to The Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple. My special guest on this episode is thriller writer Meg Gardiner. As an Edgar-winning novelist who writes fast-paced and nail-biting Hitchcockian thrillers, Meg knows more than a thing or two on how to lure people in and keep them turning pages deep into the night. The dark corners of the night, to be exact. With 3 powerful series to her credit, the Evan Delaney, Joe Beckett, and Unsubbed series, as well as 3 standalone thrillers, Meg shows no signs of slowing down. In fact, Amazon Studios snagged the rights to The Dark Corners of the Night, and thanks to the brilliant agent-producer skills of the Story Factory's Shane Salerno, we'll be anxiously awaiting for Caitlin Hendricks to keep us glued to the screen when the show debuts very soon. Now, Meg was born in Oklahoma City, raised in Santa Barbara, and educated at Stanford. And I could go on and on about all her accolades, but I would rather get right to it with one of my very favorite authors, the beautiful, talented, and oh-so-funny Meg Gardiner. You have the classiest backdrop I've seen.
Well, thank you. It took me a while to realize that if we were always going to be like Zooming, I needed to get rid of all the stacks of junk that were in my office and like actually make it look like it was a place where a grown-up could sit for a little bit. I followed Rate My Skype Room on Twitter, which was Rate My Skype Room, which would it would judge. It was just extremely judgy about people's Zoom backgrounds. So I decided I would clean up my act.
I heard about that. I've actually had people say, and this is back when I was just doing audio. They said, and I tried my hand at the video and just, it was miserable. They said, you actually can get rated by this company. I'm like, what? Oh yeah.
It wasn't a company. It's just a dude out there just being either snarky or happy.
Oh! I thought it was like some kind of official. Like if you passed this, that you were in the cool crowd.
No. There's just a dude on Twitter who calls it Rate My Skype Room, and he posts pictures and says that this one looks like your background looks like a hostage video, or this one looks like you're like. Yours is nice and cool. I like the depth. I like the colors. I like the lamp, and it's very clean. Yes. There you go.
Last time I saw you was Warwick's in La Jolla.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were talking about, it had to have been The Dark Corners of the Night. What?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great turnout. Always fun.
Fantastic.
You were delightful.
Well, thank you. I was so happy that you came. It's always like, is there going to be anybody there? They could have one seat set up and you just stare at it.
Yeah.
Hoping that...
I'm not sure who that hack was that was with you.
Some guy, he wandered in off the street. And I asked him if I told him I'd buy him a slice of pizza if he'd sit in the other chair. Yeah.
Homeless guy really knows how to interview.
Yeah, just lucky me.
Don Winslow. I'm telling you what, man, I find myself gushing entirely too much about that guy. There's just something about him that you can't not like. But isn't he a sweetheart?
He is. He's extremely generous. He's been very generous and helpful to me, and I appreciate it more than I can say. Yeah.
You know, he lives an hour from here.
I know. I mean, he had to drive. He drove all the way out to La Jolla, which I think he would have rather sat at home and done it by Zoom. But he was extremely generous.
I don't know. I think he likes the limelight. I got to see him also another. Let's see, it was after that. Got to see him and Adrian McKinty at the Mystery Shop,
Mysterious Bookshop in New York. Yeah. No, he's great. I mean, he's an excellent raconteur. So yeah.
I never knew he was such a kidder until you put him in a room with like Adrian, and they're just.
Oh gosh, yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
Anyway, so back to work. So what have you been doing? First of all, how did COVID go and treat you? Let's start there. And what have you been doing since?
Likewise, Warwick says I'm sure this was the same for you. That was, I mean, after that, every day it got weirder and weirder until, by the time I was, the next week as I was coming home from the end of book stuff, the jokes had stopped, and I was calling my husband frantically and saying, get a machete, go to the supermarket and start stocking up now, because if you wait till I get off the plane, we're going to starve. So then, everything, I stayed home. I stayed home for 15 months, and it was, I'm fine. We've stayed healthy. We're vaccinated. Everybody in my family has stayed healthy so far. The 2 out of the 3 kids are fully vaccinated. The third is in England and waiting for his second dose. But I got cabin fever. I felt like a squirrel trapped in a hollow tree. After a while, it was just crazy. But on the other hand, I kept thinking, I'm scattered, I'm unfocused, I'm not going to be able to do anything. And I was hugely productive when I look back on it, which I guess, okay, lock me in my office and tell me if I step outside, I'll die. Then I guess maybe I'll sit down and write.
Right.
How about you?
Well, it's so funny. People have asked me on several occasions, "Oh my God, David, how are you doing?" Oh, I'm like, nothing changed. Mm-hmm. I sit inside a room all day writing, and I sat inside a room all day writing. I didn't go to. I've got a couple of favorite coffee shops nearby, and the Encinitas Public Library, which, if you've never seen it, is stunning. It is one of the best views in town. So I tend to sit there and just kind of gaze. Oh, yeah. So that was gone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just kind of a piece of cake. And I caught a couple of my friends who were writers who said, I said, so come on, tell me what you've been working on. Well, so distracted by all the COVID that I couldn't really write. And I'm like, but you're purposely.
I have. At first I felt like that. I was just kind of like, what's going on? And I was just, addicted to whatever the latest findings and research and everything was. But then eventually deadlines are wonderfully focusing. So that was possibly one of the reasons it was so helpful. My husband also he works at home. He travels quite a bit, but is primarily he's in tech, and he had already primarily been working remotely. But we realized that if we were both here full-time, 24/7, 365, that our work styles in adjacent rooms are extremely different. But thank God I discovered noise-canceling headphones.
Oh, aren't they the best?
Unbelievable. Fabulous.
Oh. And you know what? I am looking forward to this. Do you have the Bose, or do you have the little?
I have the Beats Solo Pro. Fantastic.
Okay, yeah. So it's about the same thing.
But I should write to Dr. Dre and tell him he had saved my marriage. But whatever.
It's funny. Tammy works in her office, aka bedroom, down the hall. So when she's on Zooms and I'm on Zooms, we just try to keep our
Well, and we can complain as long as we want. All my kids are out of the house. I was not also running, multiple Zoom classrooms,
right.
trying to get the bandwidth and run a small business. So we're fine. We're absolutely fine. I've been able to travel now, get out to see my mom, get out to see my daughter. So life is okay.
Nice. Where is mom?
Mom's in Santa Barbara.
Oh, that's right. You spent lots of time there.
That's where I grew up. So yes, mom's in Santa Barbara. Daughter is in Menlo Park. So it's been nice, some nice travel that I've been able to get out and breathe and remind myself what summer in California is like versus Austin, Texas.
All right. There's two things. First of all, Santa Barbara, for those who watching who don't know anything about it, is probably quintessentially, I call it bubble of perfection. Austin, however, I have learned from my friends, Susie Spencer and May Cobb and others like that Austin is a little on the warm side.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Occasionally, but it's a wet heat. Yes. Just stand in the garage after you come back from walking to the mailbox and just put a fan on yourself for an hour.
And speaking of Austin, I hear the city is blowing up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's expanding massively, and they're happy to gobble up everybody who wants to turn up from anywhere else in the world. So, I mean, constructions is massive. Traffic follows with that. But it's still it's a good city. It was a good place for us to land. And when we had moved back from England to the U.S. and fun city, huge outdoor lifestyle, great food scene, great music scene. There's a book scene. Texas Book Festival is here, which is amazing and enormous. Every year 40,000 people attend. Over the weekend. So yeah. Note to
self. Austin Book Festival?
Texas Book Festival.
Oh, Texas. Oh, even bigger.
Downtown. They closed down the main drag downtown, Congress Avenue, and they hold half of it. A lot of it on the state capitol grounds. And I see the C-SPAN bookmobile is here, and it's a big deal. So
I got to see you at Thriller Fest 2019. I'm just curious because I want to talk about that. How does this compare to that? Well, it's just a book festival, so it's not the same kind of a festival. But
Thriller Fest, which is really a writers' conference, which is sessions with authors, several days just about sessions about craft, about different aspects of the craft of writing, author interviews on a couple of the days. And Thriller Fest really has become more focused on the business of writing and the craft of writing. They've got a master craft classes for that you can sign up for a day with a published author who will, workshop your stuff. They have a lot of sessions about publishing. They have, pitch sessions with agents. The Texas Book Festival, it's inviting Colson Whitehead and Tom Hanks and, famous people to come and have thousands of people come listen to them. And then they've got all the other author panels on different topics as well. But it's open, it's free to the public. And they, like I said, they usually have around 40,000 people over the course of the weekend attend, as opposed to Thriller Fest will have several hundred. So yeah,
that's crazy.
We got tacos for everyone here. It's okay. They don't run out.
This whole taco thing has become this whole subculture. I'm starting to see it show up as, it used to be 5 gold stars if you did something good. Now I'm starting to see 5 gold tacos.
Well, yeah. I mean, as far as cults go, there are worse ones to join.
Yeah. So back to Thriller Fest. That we had to take off, of course, 2020. 2021 was virtual. I hear from KJ Howe that it's coming back in 22 in early June, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Late May, early June. Yeah.
You're going to be there.
I am hoping I will be there. Yeah. I have a child who lives in New York City, so there's always a reason to attend Thriller Fest.
What is one of your favorite? And it's probably different from your side of the desk than mine, because I want to ask you your favorite thing about that. What do you always get inspired by? I mean, for a guy who's coming up as a self-publisher, I'm looking for the way the business is run and how to run my business and learn the craft from authors like yourself and so forth. But from your side, besides I just want to know what it's like on your side of the table.
Oh, as going in as a already published author, I mean, I I'm a joiner. I enjoy conferences. I mean, I sit at my desk all year talking to the people in my head. So having a conference or a convention where I can get out and meet up with like-minded folks as a reader as well as a writer, and just spend several days doing nothing but talking about the topic I love the most
Right.
in the world, about writing and books. That's just like playtime for me. And I just love going to that. I mean, Thriller Fest has, again, it's in New York City. So that's always been a huge draw for me. I love having a chance to get to New York. And the past few years, I've done just panels at Thriller Fest, which is, talking about, like whatever topics, like the bad guy, or, heroes who wear black hats, or some, they have all kinds of different topics for every session. But doing the craft fest part of it as well, which is, which means that there's one person who gets up and lectures essentially on a topic for 40, 45 minutes. And I have found that extremely a lot of fun and extremely helpful for my own writing, because as always, when you teach something, you have to prepare it, and you have to make explicit and understandable concepts that may only have been intuitive to you up till then. Okay, my daughter is trying to FaceTime me here, so I'm gonna have to tell her that Mommy's busy. Sorry.
Yeah, go right ahead. It's okay. That's why we edit.
Okay, let's take a short break while Mama Bear talks to her cub. And when we come back, we'll talk about Meg's Edgar Award and much more. Stay with us.
From Blackstone Publishing, The Dark Corners of the Night by Meg Gardiner. Don't miss it. This is a great one, says Stephen King. Brilliantly written, an unforgettable story. Stunning, says Don Winslow. Janet Ivanovich says this is a fantastic series of books by Edgar Award winner Meg Gardiner. Meg Gardiner is an astonishing writer. I couldn't turn the pages fast enough, says Tess Gerritsen. Meg Gardiner treats readers to her very best work yet. I'm so high on this book, says The Real Book Spy. Meg Gardiner is one of my favorite authors. She always delivers a terrific read, says Karen Slaughter.
Shots fired! Shots fired! He's shooting back! Shots fired! Off the field! Shots fired! Off the field!
The Dark Corners of the Night, available everywhere. Order now.
Hi, this is Meg Gardiner, author of The Dark Corners of the Night, and you are enjoying The Thriller Zone with David Temple.
And we're back.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you something. I'm going to show a little bit of my ignorance, but that's okay for me because there's plenty to go around for everyone. Can you tell me the hierarchy of awards that an author can get? Like, you're Edgar winner multiple times. Is there
one Edgar? I've won one Edgar. I've been nominated once.
Okay.
I've been a judge for the Edgars twice. And
I want to give you Edgars for everything, I think is what it is.
He's just my buddy there on the shelf back there.
Oh, nice.
Again, I cleaned up the office and made sure that Edgar was prominently displayed instead of a box of Kleenex.
So there's multiple awards. Is there what's the highest?
Well, I would say, of course, the Edgar, and then maybe Wheel of Fortune, and then the Nobel Prize. But
okay,
I mean, in the world of literature, clearly, the being awarded a Nobel Prize for your body of life's work would be the ultimate. But
yeah.
And this is, of course, biased by my having won an Edgar and having served as president of the Mystery Writers of America more recently, that I think the Edgar is the most prestigious award in crime writing. It's a juried award. I mean, they have a panel of professional authors who judge it. The Dagger Awards in Britain from the Crime Writers Association, those are also extremely prestigious. There are a lot of well-established awards, the Anthony Awards, the Barrys, the International Thriller Award is much more recent. I mean, that's been started since Thriller Fest was inaugurated now, 10, 15 years ago. So, but it's always wonderful to get recognition from your peers. There's nothing wrong with that. It's really validating. It's lovely. It's something that can be put on the cover of your novel from now till the end of time. And
New York Times best-selling author. That certainly is up there.
I'm not yet a New York Times bestselling author.
No. I'm saying a New York Times best-selling author would be, because it says to me that it's chosen by your fans, the audience, readers. I can't imagine that.
It's extremely competitive. It has a huge cachet. That's a very small list that comes out every week, so it's extremely tough to crack. It doesn't even necessarily mean that you sold the most books in the country that week by any measure. New York Times does not just tabulate the total number of books sold in the United States in a week and then list them on its site.
Okay.
Because tabulating how many books are sold is an extremely difficult task. Not every bookseller. You would have to have a database that submits. There are a number of independent bookstores in the United States that the New York Times relies on to send them their sales data every week. They also rely mysteriously on some algorithm and BookScan and Ingram and all kinds of other things. But there is no master database of books sold in the United States every week. And there are plenty of people who sell huge amounts of numbers of books and may never make the New York Times bestseller list. And for instance, if I don't know that self-published authors are recognized on the list at all, and that's a really tough nut to crack at a huge level. I mean, I know people who are extremely good at independently publishing, and they're very successful, but the kind of recognition that you would get from having the Gray Lady put its stamp on it might be elusive in that situation.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember how I got turned on to you. I think I remember seeing China Lake. This is so odd. I was doing an analysis in my head for some book covers, and I was researching, and I remember seeing China Lake, and I'm like, oh my God, that kind of says exactly what I want. And then I started reading about you. It was probably shortly thereafter, and I'd love to impress you by saying, and I've read all of your books. But I picked up Unsub, and I was like, holy crap, this is great. And then I went right into the Black Nowhere. And then, of course, I saw you, and I picked up the Dark Corners of the Night. And it's so funny. It's like picking a favorite book is like picking your favorite child, because often the book that gets me introduced to someone has a visceral connection that I go, oh my God, that's the book, your character, the way. And God, Meg, I don't know if my audience has gotten bored of it yet, but I use you as an example in about every single friggin' conversation. Matter of fact, on a recent edition with Sharon Doring, I was all Meg love forever, because
I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah. No, you have this ability to turn a phrase and to, first of all, I'm humbled by your vast vocabulary, and I've often said to my wife, "Do you think she sleeps with a thesaurus? Because her words are just pointing."
Let's see, it's what there. I think it's right there. Thesaurus.
Okay, the big fat one. All joking aside, you have just the most beautiful way with description and words.
Well, I appreciate you that you think so.
No. There's a couple of people that I think of. Well, Raymond Chandler back in the day, I loved his terse dialogue, just the way it was always jimpity pam. And then I grew into really love Elmore Leonard because of the way he just trimmed every square inch of fat off of any sentence. And I'm like, when you read Elmore Leonard at length, then you realize, man, I am just a babbling fool. But then I discovered Pat Conroy, and this is coming back to you. So Pat Conroy, in a paragraph, would paint this languorous, luscious, lovely scene that could say so much with so few words, although he used plenty of words, that would just make your mind expand. And every time I read your stuff, I think of that.
I mean, that's also the brilliance of editing. That having a chance to do a second, a third, a fourth, however many drafts that you hope that you will improve the prose with every draft. And it took me a long time to learn that being able to turn a phrase or come up with a quip in dialogue was wonderful. It was fun. It made me feel sparkly. It's not enough. That doesn't make a book. So of course, if a turn of phrase comes to a writer, go with it. The inspiration is always wonderful. If a fantastic interchange in dialogue pops into your head, write it down. Don't ever just rest on that though, because none of it's going to matter unless you have absolutely powerful characters who are in a really dynamic conflict in a story with a big hook that builds to a gripping conclusion. So that's what polishing is for. When you come to when you come to the end, you can you find that dialogue that's just kind of sitting there like a wet washcloth, and you slap it into shape.
The reason we love mysteries and thrillers is because it makes us try to figure it out, and we turn the page to take that speed and run with it and escape and love every minute of it. And I'm trying to think of if it was Into the Black Nowhere or Dark Corners of the Night. At the end, when I thought it was like dun 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 dun, and then all of a sudden, oh well, there's more dun 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 dun. Okay, well they can't go anymore. Dun 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 dun.
Okay. Well, I will tell you two sources that taught me how to do stuff like that. One is Jeffrey Deaver, who is the master of misdirection and the master of the twist, followed by the twist, followed by the twist. And he spends a lot of time before he sits down to actually draft a book. He spends months thinking up the book and those twists. And the second is Tex Avery and Chuck, who's the Looney Tunes director, Chuck Jones. That you don't just have a punchline, then you have a twist into a second punchline, and then a third twist into the third punchline. So watch every Roadrunner cartoon and see how it never just rests on a single joke. There's always a couple of more coming. So those
you are so right. I'm sitting here going back. It's like it's not just the cliff, but it's the cliff, and then it drops, and then there's a twig, and then you fall, and then wait, there's one dangling leaf,
and then the piano lands on him. Yeah,
right. Or the massive anvil.
Uh-huh.
Jeffrey Deaver. I think the very first book I read of his may have been when I want to say it, maybe he had taken on the James Bond franchise.
Mm-hmm. Carte blanche.
Yes. And I was like, wow, this mofo can write. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I never thought about that, but I'm going to go back and reread that because that really is a craft, a talent to up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've got to build it in there. You've got to build it in when you think it up. You've got to go back and try to figure out how this fits with character. Will it actually advance the plot? Will it surprise and delight the readers without making them think, that this is just stupid and ridiculous? It's all got to fit.
Yeah, sometimes I say to myself, the people who. What did I read? Okay, I don't want to mention that because I loved the book, but there was this one element that they did. And it was, they were running to this, and then they had a car chase, and they were running to this, and then it was a motorcycle and this. And there was a point, my wife and I handed it to her, she read it right away, and she said, oh, okay, so there's a chase. Got it. Move on. Mm-hmm. So China Lake, Mission Canyon, Jericho Point, Crosscut, Kill Chain. That's Evan Delaney. Joe Beckett, Dirty Secrets Club, The Memory Club, Liar's Lullaby, The Nightmare Thief. And when those series came to you, you said to yourself, hey, you know what? This feels like 2 or 3, maybe 4 books. Do you see it that way? Do you go?
Not at all. I mean, I wrote China Lake. I had an idea for the character and the story. And so I wrote China Lake. And then I was offered a publishing contract in the UK with Hodder and Stoughton. And they said, we'd like you to write another book. Can you write a sequel? And I said, of course I can. And then I panicked because I had no idea what I was going to write about because I had only thought about China Lake. So I did not conceive of it as a series. but they asked me if I could turn it into one. So I did. But of course, after there are 5 books, I will say to anybody who was out there, because I get this question still a lot, is that will I ever continue the series? And I do have the 6th book kind of outlined. I don't have a space for it on the publication schedule yet, because the 5th book kind of ends on a cliffhanger. And now it's been years, and people are kind of wondering, are they still holding on to that cliff, or is that, are the roots starting to tear out? Are they going to fall off, or what?
Right.
But the thing was with that series, because I just wrote the book that just came to me, and it was a passion project. I didn't consciously try to craft it as a crime series. Evan Delaney is a journalist. She's a writer. She's and a former lawyer. So she is not in the crime business, And the China Lake was about her family, and she's trying to protect her nephew from this apocalyptic sect that his mother has joined, while his dad is he's a naval aviator, and he's deployed, at sea. So Evan is taking care of this little boy, this 6-year-old boy, and the mother comes back and wants him, and she's going to take him off to this, this cult compound, and Evan has to try to keep them from getting hold of him. So that was the thread of the story. I didn't consciously craft it as, well, Evan is going to be a crime fighter. She's going to have adventures like Kinsey Milhone or V.I. Warshawski or anything like that. So to create a series then with a character who is not in law enforcement, is not a PI, doesn't really have a career as an investigator other than being an investigative journalist. So how was I going to continue that series indefinitely became a question. And I ended it on a cliffhanger. And by that point, I'd had a concept for the Dirty Secrets Club, which was not a story that fit with anything that Evan Delaney would be involved in. So if you're going to write a story, you've got to write the story, but it needs to center on the character who has the most at stake in that story and who fits with that story. So I created an entirely different world for that book, centered around Joe Beckett, who's a forensic psychiatrist who consults for the San Francisco police. So, yeah.
So you're not going on record as saying that the 6th will drop in the Delaney
No,
series.
it's not going to drop. Evan does appear in The Nightmare Thief. That's a crossover. It's got her and Joe both in that. And there's a Evan Delaney prequel short story in an anthology of short stories that was published last year, Deadly Anniversaries, which is just out in paperback this year. So, but for people who are going to email me or tweet at me, I have not forgotten about these people. I still like them. They're just sitting in the back room, kind of twiddling their thumbs and looking at their watches, wondering what's up with me.
And so with Joe Beckett, for instance, when you got to the end of those 4 books, that's when you go, you know what? Enough was said. Or was it like the first story where, hey, do you have any more of this? I mean, that's got to be an amazing happenstance for someone to just say, I love that, and let's make it more, as long as you're feeling it.
It's wonderful. And, part of it is what is the stories that come to me. Part of it, of course, is the business of publishing, where if publishers are really hot for standalone novels, sometimes, they will say, okay, everybody wants standalone novels now. What have you got? Do you have an idea for a self-contained book? So like I say, I certainly do. And I've published 3 standalones as well as now 3 series. So it's mix and match. I mean, some stories really do come to a conclusion for the characters in their world, and but readers love them just as much as a series.
That's a great question. Does that move in cycles? Is there a point where you're like, oh, everybody wants a series, and then all of a sudden, no, let's just do standalones? Because I'm thinking of a lot of the authors that I've follow. They do a lot of standalone. So what's your take on that and or experience?
It's readers love series. The issue with series sometimes is that readers always want to start at the beginning. So if you have book 16 in a series coming out and they've never heard of you, they might say, I would love to start a new series, but I'm not going to read this one. I'm going to go back to number one and start there. I got an email from a reader who was recently who was very disappointed that he picked up one of the Evan Delaney novels and that it did not say part 5 on the cover. So there's all kinds of stuff in here that I don't know about.
Boo-hoo.
Yeah. Because I presume that this all happened in the previous 4 books.
Oh.
Well, yeah. That's why all the books are listed in order and at the inside the front cover. Yeah.
And, oh, that's what that table of contents is for.
But yeah, a lot of readers will as the Brits say, take a flyer on a standalone. That's how a lot of books become, the big talking points of the summer. It's easy to pick up a fresh book that's got a fresh idea, and readers will glom onto that joyfully. So and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But a lot of the big books of the past few years have been standalone novels. Think of Gone Girl, The Chain, The Girl on the Train, Falling this summer, the Razorblade Tears. That's those are all standalones. So
there's so many things rushing through my head, whizzing past. I'm going to go in reverse order. Razorblade Tears. Did I see a?
That's just out. That is just out last a few days ago. Last week. S.A. Cosby. It's a Southern rural noir.
Yeah, and your husband said he's going on a flight. He goes, "I'm not leaving without that book or something."
Right, because he had read John Cosby's previous novel a few months ago, and he loved it so much that Blacktop Wasteland. He loved that book so much that he said, "Okay, I hear this dude has a new book out. Is that true?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Okay, now I know what I want to read." So
wow. Yeah. All right. Question number 2. So he's an avid reader.
Yes.
Your husband, yeah.
My husband, yes.
And he's read everything you've written.
Damn right.
Damn straight, girl. And if you don't, you're not coming home.
That's right.
And you mentioned another one, T.J. Newman with Falling. Have you seen anything like that happen quite that big and that fast and that?
Well, sure, it happens. I mean, it happened with Dan Brown, with Angels and Demons and
right.
the Da Vinci Code. But it's a fantastic book. It's a great summer thriller. Absolutely fantastic. And she's got the cred. I mean, it's about an airline pilot who boards his flight, cross-country flight, and as he takes off, he gets a message that says, "We have your family. Crash the plane or they die." So what's he going to do? And the author is spent 10 years as a flight attendant for Virgin America and Alaska Airlines. So so that gives you like, oh, she's got the inside scoop. She knows what she's talking. But it is a rocket sled of a book. So I totally recommend it.
Yeah, I think I read it. It took me only 2 days, maybe 2.5 days. Wife read it. She read it in a day and a half. It was we just ripped through it. I'm trying to think of the last book I got to tell you, Unsub I ripped through because that was such a poignant, powerful character. And this other thing flashed in my head when you were speaking, and I wanted to make sure I thanked you again, like I don't do this enough. Thriller Fest 2019. I think I came up. I got you to sign one of my books, and we're chatting. I don't know if you remember this.
I do remember. It was in one of those big rooms where you have to hop down off the stage to talk to people. Yeah. Yeah,
but I gotten a little deflated because I just pitched a book that I took up there with me, and the gentleman just couldn't have been any more. No. And I was like, okay. And we talked about it. I've told this story too many times on the show, so I'm not going to tell it again. But I walked in and I was coming in. You were one of the first faces I saw. And I generally don't try to wear that laundry in public, but you're so approachable and so kind. And I made the comment about, man, he just shot that story down. And you said, so? And I'm like, yeah. So that's one opinion. And secondly, it's your story. I was talking about it. It had already been done before. Yeah, but no one's going to tell like you, David. Mm-hmm. I walked away, Meg. You'll never really know what that meant to me. It just it meant the
Well,
world.
I'm glad. And I would stand by that today. It's
Yeah.
absolutely true. It is. It's hard to hear it. There's nothing. It's hard to get a rejection on paper. It's hard to get it in in an envelope or in your inbox. It's awful to get it face to face. But when we keep saying, we got to develop a thick skin, Yeah, well, we don't want to, develop, a paper cut just looking at a piece of paper, but you don't want to be a rhinoceros about this stuff. This is the work of, God knows how many years and how much sweat and labor and love did you put into it. So of course it's going to sting, and there's no way that it shouldn't, but so what?
So what?
So what?
2 words. You sent me on my way. I walked on clouds from there. I think it was just because I respect you so much, and I thought she's right, and I'm not lacking for confidence. I don't worry about that. I didn't get to where I got by being unconfident, but. This is a new career. This is my 3rd chapter, my 3rd career. So I'm going in at kind of 2 guns loaded and full barrels. And
I probably said that to you because I think I trusted you enough that you were smart enough and understand the business enough to know that, sometimes what we write won't sell. And what that means is that we need to look at what we've written and find out, number one, is it strong enough? Is there a reason why it didn't, if every comment and critique we get, hits on the same thing, like, calling it Jurassic Park about these scientists reanimated the dinosaurs really has been done, then we might listen to that. But being willing to continue to work on our craft and to go on to be willing, always be ready to write the next thing. That if for some reason our stuff isn't hitting, we've got more stuff.
Yeah, and to put a button on it is I did learn a lot. That was 2 years ago now, and I learned enough that said, you're right. Is it the best thing? It's pretty good. I went back and worked on it harder again and recrafted some things. But I'm also a big fan of finish it, move on. There's plenty more. I mean, as you and I both know, you probably do this all the time. Well, of course you do. And we're going to get to crime headlines in a second. All you got to do is pick up a newspaper or hear something on the radio, and it'll just trigger a thought. And you're like, what if this were to turn that upside down? So point taken, Tony, and moving on. But yet I digress. Did we unsub Black Nowhere, Dark Corners? Is there a 4th? Yes.
Sub 4 is coming. Details very soon. So,
okay.
Yes.
And I do know, I remember I was piddling across, Blackstone Publishing has become some kind of a behemoth. I mean, it's only the largest indie publisher of audiobooks, maybe, I don't know, in the business. And I know that they were doing a little cooperative venture with the Story Factory, who helps manage you and your intellectual property. And gosh, if I missed it, then somebody just shoot me in the face. I know Amazon bought Dark Corners of the Night. That is still yet to come, correct?
Correct. Amazon Studios bought The Dark Corners of the Night for development as a television drama. Yes. So that is in process right now, which means, they've got Lawrence Trilling is executive producing it. He's the showrunner. He also makes Goliath with Billy Bob Thornton for Amazon. The pilot is being written, and they've got a team assembled for all of that. And I hope there will be more news soon. But I've got a lot of stuff that's like, the stuff is bubbling, but I'm being coy about exactly what's going on. So
that's fine. But I just want to tap into your enthusiasm. I don't need secret details. That wouldn't be fair, but that's got to be that's my ultimate dream. I mean, I can't think of a more ultimate dream than to write a book and then get it turned on to the screen. What does that feel like for you?
Oh, it's wonderful. I'm aware that I've tried deliberately to treat it as the cherry on the sundae. That, I mean, there's so many more books written every year than television shows or movies ever produced. So it's an uphill climb anyway to get attention to a novel and have it optioned for the screen. So I was absolutely 100% delighted by that. Extremely excited to know that who was that the production company and the people behind it are extremely professional and wonderful storytellers, and to have some the trust that they will do right by the material. And like you said, it's a completely different medium. It's a different method of storytelling. So I'm involved, but I'm not around the table writing dialogue day by day with the primary screenwriters. As an author, you have to be willing to let go a bit to know that it will have to be reimagined for the screen. And if you can't do that, then you'd better be in a position where you get to create it yourself and put it out there. Otherwise, don't bother sending it out if you're going to be a stickler for making sure it's exactly the way it is on the page.
But you would like to, I'm assuming, I have to believe, because you're so hyper creative, you would love to get inside that writer's room, maybe eventually.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I just, fairly recently discovered, Final Draft software, and that formats everything for you. It's so much more intuitive than Word. I'm like, this is a piece of cake. No offense to screenwriters. I know how exacting and tough the discipline in the industry is. But so that was a formatting joke.
Yeah, I've written 2 screenplays, and one of them fortunately was able to get turned into a movie by my hand. The format is specific, and I thought I knew the format until I've got a buddy, a long time buddy, who works at Warner Brothers, and he looked at one of my first screenplays, and he goes, okay, here's the good news. You know how to use Final Draft. Here's the bad news. You're about 45 pages over, and you're giving me way too much direction, and here's why. And he's like, That's a harsh but really powerful lesson, because it's a whole different way to tell a story. But I got to tell you something. I love writing screenplays it's going to sound counterintuitive, because like with your writing, and the writing we all love is color and depth, tremors and scares. And so you picked up a copy.
A Final Draft.
Yeah. And you're digging that. Have you tried to take one of your stories or just an idea of a story and put it in there just for kicks and giggles?
Oh, I have written, just tried to do it. And even beyond, like the dinosaur attacked the Taco Bell kind of, level of this is how you do the exposition and the dialogue. But so we'll see where that goes eventually. But right now I'm stuck into writing novels and hoping to branch out a bit more and flex some more muscles.
Now, so TV and film being 2 different things, have you had anybody approach you? Would you like to take one of your books and turn it into a movie?
I wouldn't say no. Again,
yeah.
I'm the only author I know who absolutely refused to let her material be adapted was Sue Grafton. She would not let the Alphabet Mysteries be adapted. She had been a television writer, and she said she knew too much about how the sausage was made, and she didn't want to turn her characters over to anybody.
Yeah, I love that series. I read every single stinking one of them until the end. God, she had such a simple, elegant way to tell a story.
But if someone, if the MGM helicopter settled on my lawn outside, which I presume they've got helicopters for these things, and said, "Hey, we want this book," I would be abandoning you and running outside. Yeah.
Fair enough. One of my guilty pleasures of the day is following your crime headlines.
On Twitter, yes.
Oh my God, on Twitter. And I try not to comment on too many of them, because people have better things to do with their time than see what I go, really? Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. Again? Why? How are you? But here's my point. First of all, I want to know the gestation of that, because I want to hear how your crazy, kooky little mind goes. And number 2, so you can ponder on this, is give me one that you run across lately that you said to yourself, okay, now this one takes it to a whole new level.
Oof, I'd have to go back. There are just so many. It's hard to sort through them. Life is pretty absurd, and there are, thanks to television cameras and cell phone cameras and news feeds, there are plenty of ways to find out just how absurd Homo sapiens can actually behave. So Twitter can become it can become a doom scrolling cesspool of negativity and snark. And I thought I would rather inject some levity into that. And being a crime writer, I would just look for dumb crimes. Not everything is a crime headline of the day. Sometimes it's just a headline of the day. The one that got the biggest response this year was the BBC headline, "Mystery Beast in Tree Revealed as Croissant." Like they'd had like a SWAT team and animal control come out to taser this like beast, this strange beast in a tree outside an apartment building, and it was a croissant. So, but the crime headline today is people can be dumb, and so just pointing out the absolutely absurd ways they do dumbness in public and get caught for it. I use it as a lesson and as a way to just absolutely point and laugh at people. I try to make sure that I do not generally ever post anything about something where people get seriously hurt.
Right.
The crime headline of the day is not about a series of gruesome murders or certainly about animals being injured or anything like that. But just, it's like drunken pig attacks cow and cop that arrives to stop the melee. Woman crashes through ceiling tiles at Burger King in attempt to steal the fries. That kind of thing. So, and sometimes I put the states. If it happens in a particular state, I put that in the tweet, which is basically to tell the rest of the United States, you're not trying hard enough to keep up with Florida, so you better up your game. So.
And no offense to certain shopping complexes, but why do I see more of the stranger stories happening in or near a Walmart?
A lot of square footage. They're big. A lot of square footage on the floor.
Nicely done. I don't know why.
There do tend to be themes, and you find out that certain phrasing of headlines tends to be funnier. And I realize you don't comment that often, but Sandra Brown, the author, every now and then she comments and she goes, "Naked again?"
Yeah.
It's like, it's like someone captured with 175 bowling balls stolen from the alley. Naked. And she's like, "Why are they always naked? Why are they always naked?" It's because it's funnier if I find a headline where someone is doing something stupid, literally exposing themselves to ridicule.
Yeah, you wonder what's going through their mind. Okay, I could just go steal these, but I'll go naked. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of the last crazy thing I did naked, but maybe I'll save that for another show. So last night over dinner, my wife and I were talking, and I know this question coming at you is probably got to be in the top 3 questions you get asked. So you can go, "Dave, please shut up. I've heard that too much." Or you can go, "Oh, here you go." And I said, "Hey, because being in radio, I like to hear different opinions. Honey, if you could ask Meg Gardiner any one thing, what would it be?" She goes, "You know what?" Because she loved Dark Corners of the Night. Mm-hmm. She read that probably the second fastest I've seen her read anything. And she said, "I just want to know." She goes, "You talk so highly of her, and I've seen her posts and different. She seems so sweet. Where did she come up with these ideas?" And I said, "Well, I'll ask her."
Yeah, I am sweet. That doesn't mean that I can't come up with crazy ideas. The editor says, or an agent says, could you write a really terrifying novel about a serial killer? I say, yes, I could. Give me a chance to think about everything that terrifies me and that seems to be terrifying everyone in the culture and is ringing a bell with people's conscious and unconscious fears. And I'll see how I can pull that out and turn that into some gripping fiction. Send you guys on a roller coaster ride. Yeah. In an emotionally satisfying way. I mean, we all like to take a look at the dark side of things. And one thing that thrillers do is allow us as writers to take readers on that journey, but let them feel like we're going to bring them back safely.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
We're not going to just have the roller coaster end, or like the Simpsons, the escalator to nowhere where people get up and they keep going up. That we are going to bring it back around to the platform and let you get off safely, perhaps with your hair a little mussed, but in one piece. So. Yeah, I mean, we all have, as Stephen King says, you want to write a story, go down into the basement, dig up the stuff that's down there. And we just have to be willing to access it. It doesn't mean that I wasn't good at making cupcakes for the second grade classroom, that I wasn't a den mother for the Cub Scouts.
Oh, bless your heart. Honey, she's not really that evil. She's still very sweet. She just got a demented mind. But let's keep that between us.
It all comes out on the page, not in my actions on the street. So that's good.
Well, I think of it this way. When's the last time you got really, really mad at someone or a situation, not pointing to anyone specifically, and you go, man, you know what I'd like to do? I have those thoughts quite often. And so I'm talking to Tammy the other day, and I was in a mood, and she goes, well, what would you say to him? I'm like, say to him? No, I want to take some garden shears and take his fingers off one by one at the middle knuckle until one hand is done and go, now how you feeling? And she looks at me like, okay.
So you guys are pretty open about your feelings.
Yeah. So you could say that. I'm very transparent, Meg. I'll tell you like it is. We watch an inordinate amount of detective shows, and I'm completely sucked into PBS. I don't know why. PBS has a whole different mindset about their detective stories. We're watching Unforgotten right now. I can't get enough of them. And night after night, we watch 2 or 3 episodes at a time. And I'm like, and the other night I said, what is it about me that I just love to watch all this dark humanity? And I kind of ask you that. What do you think that thing is in us that we just like to peek behind that? And
well, we're nosy. We're curious and we're nosy. And we love gossip. We love, like you said, a peek behind the curtain. We like to see how any arcane, closed off world actually operates, whether it's the FBI, or Treadstone in the Bourne, the Bourne books and movies, or the mafia and anti-hero stories, the meth lab that Walter White runs in Breaking Bad. And sometimes we watch to see the bad guys get their comeuppance. We like to look to see how far they're going and wonder how we would behave in the same situation, hoping that we would act differently. And I think we also really, in the U.S., Britain, especially the fiction that's been written for 90 years, or even going back to the 19th century, the whole concept of mystery and detective stories implies that we recognize that there is things can go wrong in the world, that there are injustices, that crimes are committed, and that's not a good thing. But there are forces attempting to put it right. That when chaos causes someone's world to fall apart, or them to be victimized in a crime, that society will recognize that, and that there are people who will act on all our behalves to try to bring about some form of justice. And these stories imply that justice is a thing that exists, that we don't just live in this, nasty, brutish, and short state of nature world where, that anything goes, that there are rights and wrongs, and that we can distinguish between them, and that occasionally we can put right what is wrong, at least in some way. So they can be very dark, but they can be essentially hopeful and optimistic. And overall, I think. Yeah.
That is one of the most concise, well thought out answers I may have heard in quite some time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, bravo.
Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll hear what Meg reads in her spare time, who the authors are that she's following, and as we begin to wrap the show, I'll ask Meg a couple of fun, random questions that I'm sure you'll get a kick out of. But first, here's a teaser for a book you have to read this summer. Stay tuned for more of The Thriller Zone. We'll be right back.
They kidnapped the pilot's family before takeoff. They gave him an ultimatum. Crash the plane or your family dies. Now one FBI agent on the ground is racing against time to stop a crime 35,000 feet in the air. Will the pilot choose his family or the 144 passengers? Some of the biggest authors in the world are talking about Falling by T.J. Newman. Non-stop, totally authentic suspense, says James Patterson.
The perfect summer thriller, raves Janet Ivanovich.
This is Jaws at 35,000 feet, says Don Winslow. Amazing, intense suspense and shocks and scares, Lee Child. This is the best thriller I've read in years, Adrian McKinty. We'll have you in its grips from first page to last, Steve Kavanaugh. Can the FBI save the passengers before the pilot has to choose? Enjoy the flight.
The Thriller Zone.
The first question is, what do you read in your spare time? And the second question is, do you have a favorite author? That's the one that kind of puts you on the spot. But
I read very eclectically. I read very widely in the thriller and crime genre. The reason I write these books, I think, is because I grew up and came to adulthood loving thrillers, just absolutely loving them, inhaling them. The tension, the suspense, the race against time, the gigantic stakes, the people who have to make life and death decisions with their backs up against the wall, finding who can rise to the challenge. Who's going to fall, who's going to betray, who's going to, where will courage win out? I mean, that just swept me away. But as far as I read a lot of nonfiction as well. I'm trying to I read voraciously. So a lot of my favorite authors, I've already read everything they've written, which means that I get a chance. I'm trying to deliberately make sure I reach out and read authors who are new to me to see what other voices who I haven't heard are really talking about. Everybody from S.A. Cosby, Rachel Housel Hall, Alistair Burke, Stephen Graham Jones, who isn't quite crime. He writes some horror, just to really find fresh new stories and love the writing and everything. Favorite authors? I mean, I would go on until my computer blew up here.
Just give me 200 or 300. No.
I will just give you Stephen King.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
For reasons cultural and personal, he's just always going to be my favorite author. His books just consistently have blown me away since I first picked up The Stand. And since then, he's the biggest dog in American lit, I think, and he has been very kind to me and to so many other writers, paying it forward because people listen to him. That it's been extremely gratifying.
He does have a way with words, and his volume, his repeated volume. This last little side venture, notwithstanding, which is a smaller paperback, and I can't. It's not ringing me right.
It was Hard Case Crime. I can't. The title eludes me, but yeah, he's written for them before.
Yeah, it looks like a Pulp Fiction brag. But boy, I am boggled at the volume of words. Stephen is just always. It's just a slow, steady, steep, lingering staircase to frantic surprise. And
he understands character, and the people he writes about feel extremely real to us on the page. He understands American characters from the trailer park to the White House. So he knows people from the inside out, and he portrays them with insight and compassion. Even the worst people, they remain human beings, and which makes the stories feel, no matter how out there they are with supernatural elements, they feel grounded in emotional reality. So he's our Dickens in that way. His stuff is going to last.
Everybody or most everyone knows you're a prolific writer. You have a way with words. You're very well spoken. You're a Jeopardy genius. Well, what is something that people would be surprised to learn about Meg Gardiner?
I lettered in cross country in college at Stanford. I was on the cross country team. Let's see what else. And not everybody knows this, even though it is in my Twitter bio. I'm a reformed mime. I'm a rehabilitated mime. I was a theater kid in high school. I joined the mime troupe because I couldn't sing.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
It was fun. It was huge fun. But I will warn anybody, if you go out to a performance wearing white pancake makeup and black turtlenex, just say, if you stop at the Baskin Robbins on the way back to sixth period, don't be surprised if the next thing you see are the sheriff's flashing lights in your rearview mirror because someone has called 911 and said that the Baskin Robbins was being robbed.
Oh God, I'm just trying to see you doing some mime. I'm going to see, maybe we can bring some of that back in Thriller Fest 2022.
I could carve out a little space. I could carve out a box.
Yeah, nice.
Trap myself in it in a corner of the room, just like you've got that one behind you. You've got your
yes, ma'am.
My box I would eventually be easier to get out of because I wouldn't have to actually get a screwdriver to disassemble it.
So as we wrap it down, you've been so gracious with your time. Thank you very much, Meg. I'd like to ask a few questions that it's just pure curiosity. Part of it is voyeur, part of it's just, my radio background. So I'm like, when you sit down to write, do you like to listen to music or do you like it silent? And if you do like music, do you have a certain flavor that you like to listen to, Jean?
Two-part answer. When I am writing a rough draft, I generally prefer silence. And I prefer my noise canceling headphones because I find music so wonderful and powerful that it tends to distract me when I need to be putting all my creative focus into crafting the words, especially if there's something with lyrics. That when you're trying to write your own words down, I find it very difficult if I'm just writing a rough draft. When I get to the point where I'm editing, for some reason that flips a different kind of circuit in my brain, and I love to edit with soundtracks. With movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
They tend to be atmospheric and they rise and fall and they're supposed to lead you through an emotional journey. So you pick the right tone and put yourself in that frame of mind. And it can really get you into the zone where you want to be.
Are you a Spotify? Oh.
Spotify. I have an Amazon playlist, but also for The Dark Corners of the Night, it's not a spoiler to say that the killer listens to a lot of music. And I was looking for a playlist that might fit this person's taste. And I was just like Googling like weird topics. And finally I hit on like dark industrial metal. And I thought that sounds like something that would terrify suburban parents. Let me put together a playlist like this. And that's where I got a lot of the Killer's favorite songs, but it turns out it's a wonderful playlist. It's extremely melodic and it's full of angst and drama. And so I could listen to that. A lot of Nine Inch Nails.
No, do you still have the list?
Oh, well, yeah, I went to Amazon and Amazon Music and just typed in dark industrial metal and it'll
okay.
create a playlist for you.
Because I was going to say, I'm a big fan I listen to so many different sources, but the nice thing about Spotify is I will build a list for this exact same way, whether it's rough drafting or I need to build a tense scene, then I tend to love, Born Identity soundtrack, for instance, Zero Dark 30, Hans Zimmer, Tiesto, which is high beats per minute. And so I will often share my little...
If, when you're on deadline and you have an action scene to edit, I heartily recommend the Gladiator soundtrack. Yes.
Oh, nice one. Excellent. You're getting ready to have your favorite wine over a very delicious dinner with your husband. You get to invite two friends to the dinner, living or past, could be writer, could be just anyone. Who would you invite?
I would serve a Sancerre and There are far too many people that I would love to invite. I would, since we're in Austin, I would I would call to Jeff Abbott, who's another thriller writer who also lives in Austin, and he and his family can bring over. We'll potluck, and they can bring it in. And
Nice.
And Amanda Air Ward, who is also another Austin writer, not a crime novelist, but she's was her book, The Jet Setters, was a Reese Witherspoon's pick recently, and they're just adorable people that I'd love to spend an evening with.
Nice. Let's see. So you, at that dinner, I'm just curious, just because I'm always tuned into music, what would be playing in the background with that delicious wine and those fun people? It's a Saturday night, it's summertime, windows are open, breeze blowing.
Tom Petty, the Beatles, Foo Fighters, some of the artists that my husband Paul Shreve, he runs a small Americana music label, so we'd be playing some of his artists, Rebecca Loby and Ray Prim, and Radio Gunners, and we'd be sitting out on the porch and talking about whatever the next book is we're going to write.
I love it. Well, thank you again for joining us. If people want to get hold of you, meggardiner.com is probably the best way to do that, right?
Correct.
And you're going to keep us posted on when all your fabulous books are going to get turned into blockbuster movies and TV shows.
I will, and I will keep you posted on the publication dates for the upcoming novels, and we'll keep going from there. You can find me on Twitter if you have suggestions for stupid crime at Meg Gardiner 1.
Awesome. Meg, thank you so much for this time.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.
Big thanks to Meg Gardiner for joining our podcast. Just delightful, and what a treat. And hey, if it hadn't been for the fact that she has so many irons in the fire, I'm pretty sure we could have talked for hours. If you haven't read her latest thriller, The Dark Corners of the Night, don't waste another minute. Snag a copy today. Okay, now a quick plug for our next special guest. On next Friday's Thriller Zone, you'll want to tune in to meet the brilliant and prolific thriller writer, Ted Bell. Tune in as we learn how he has managed to craft 11 consecutive New York Times bestsellers with the lead character Alex Hawke, a dashing aristocrat many compare to James Bond. Please join me next week, whether on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, for yet another episode of The Thriller Zone.